Hello, brave people. I am so excited about the conversation today because I am introducing you to my bestie, Erica Tamburo. And Eric and I were just doing the math dangerously on how long we've been friends. It started 22 years ago in college. We actually lived across the hallway from each other. And we had passed each other a couple of times. And for some god awful reason, I decided to do Taibo, or maybe it was your roommate that decided. Anyways, our first activity together was randomly doing Taibo. And then we never, ever, ever did any of that silliness ever again because that is not really who we are. And then from there, it was like a slow growth and deepening of our friendship until we moved in with each other junior year, right? Yeah, and we lived together junior year, senior year. And then you came to see me in Germany. I was back and forth to Pittsburgh. And there were times where we weren't in constant contact with each other, but somehow we always were, which I think is really incredible.
That's accurate.
Yeah. And so Erica was a woman in STEAM way before I was. I'm sure I made a lot of fun of her. When I first started working as a secretary for the computer science department, which is what got me into tech, she was the one I was living with, and I complained and complained and complained and complained, and she always convinced me to keep going back. And thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Oh, and Erica Tamburo, behind me, if you are seeing this video, and if you're not usually watching the videos, that's totally fine, but just pop over because she is a creative in many spaces. Tech, done incredible research in tech. Art, there is one of the many pieces I have of hers in the back of the video, and opportunities for women and girls. And I am so excited to share you, but also your story. Welcome.
We promised not to cry today, right?
I didn't promise nothing.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for having me, and thank you to all your listeners for their time to join us and listen to our story. Hope you find something from it. Hope you connect.
Oh my goodness. You're like the story I actually know, and I'm just like, people are going to learn so much, and it's going to be so great. But which of the just loads of them? She's not going to share the brave story of when she was my roommate because this poor woman suffered. She's going to share a different story. So what story did you want to share with us today?
Oh, it's hard to choose one story, right? I have so many stories that are always parallel to each other. I think the story I would like to share is my story with art, and which will parallel my technology story as well. So, since we're sharing time frames now, and everybody knows how old we are,
we are young and fabulous.
We're just hitting our prime. Honestly, we are. So let's see. About 12 years ago. Yeah, I just had a work anniversary. 12 years ago, I graduated without a PhD.
Woo woo!
And, well, I guess I need to start a little bit before there. So 13 years ago, 12 and a half. Yeah, I was on a track, a PhD track, working in technology, assistive technology. And I exited early because it was the right thing to do. It was a hard decision to make. And it didn't feel so great because that was the goal. Or rather, that was somebody else's goal that I made my own. And I got a job and I've been there ever since.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't it, because I walked this with you, so I'm going to be interrupting you all the time like usual, but I love you. Isn't it amazing how I guess that was probably 20 seconds, right? And now 12 and a half years later, it's like, yeah, that was an experience. It was the right thing for me. It was someone else's dream. But at the time, it was agonizing. I mean,
oh god, it was hard.
it was so
Yeah.
hard. That's when I was still on the road a lot, and we would talk a lot about the pain of making that choice. And now it's like so clearly the right thing that you did because you chose yourself.
You know, there was a fellow student. No, she was a postdoc. And she said to me, "You're just not passionate about this research. You're just not passionate about it." And I was so mad. I was angry at her. I was, "How dare you? I am passionate about this. I put so much time and kill myself over
Mm-hmm.
this work." Um, I had no idea what passion was. I thought
Yeah.
passion was just a goal, like just I want to accomplish X. Okay, I'm passionate about it. I didn't understand what passion was.
Yeah, because your work ethic is wild.
It's
Your work
yeah.
ethic is it's a farm girl. So my family calls Erica farm girl because she literally grew up farming and brings that wisdom into everything. And that's your work. I mean, that is your work ethic.
Yeah, we worked till the early morning to late night. Either
Mhm.
you were on the farm or you were learning or you were working your second job. There was always many jobs.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a great work ethic, but at the same time, like I don't understand how not to work and how to relax. That's one of
yeah,
my lifelong challenges that will totally under everyone will understand when I like get a little bit through further into my
yeah.
story.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no,
Because that brings you to your art. I love it. Keep going.
so yeah, I wasn't passionate, and my advisor, had to be the one that was like, he said, "It's just not working." And I had been
Mm.
struggling for so long, and I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And I walked out of there totally crushed, and that was really hard. I saw him a couple of years ago
Yeah.
and walked up to him and thanked him. And he was like, "You don't hate me?" I'm like, "No, why would I hate you? You were right. Like, thank you for telling me." Because there's a lot of people that graduate and get their PhDs and then don't do very well because that's not the work that they were meant to do.
Mm,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
and how many of
Yeah, and
us?
he was brave. I mean, that I'm sure that that was very hard for him to say. And he had some learning to do
Yeah,
as well. And that's
he's a bit of a
incredible.
hard ass, so I don't know. Brave would be. It's probably just one of 20 conversations he had like that day.
Well, you were brave to listen to him and to feel the feels and keep
Yes, I
going.
am grateful for his hard ass.
Yeah.
um, so where things start to parallel is about that time, like I had discovered, oh yeah, right, I love photography. Um, and Robert, my husband, got me a digital camera. I finally embraced. That was back when the big, manual camera to digital camera occurred.
Yeah.
God, I feel old.
Yeah.
I feel so
We've been married for this
old.
length. Isn't that incredible? Oh man.
So I started a career in medical imaging research as well as a career as a photographer. Which actually just until recently I was like, oh, imaging, parallel imaging careers, and that interesting. There's
Yeah,
something.
totally.
Um, so my challenge with my art was that I so desperately wanted to be considered an artist. I wanted people to take me seriously.
Mm.
And when you're starting out with anything, like it's challenging to get people to appreciate you for what you know you can achieve.
Your
Yeah.
potential, your vision. Yeah.
And, I was starting at a pretty late age being a beginner.
Mm.
And that's hard for me, a perfectionist, an engineer. I'm like, I know, you think you have so much knowledge and then you're beginning again and you don't remember what it's like to be a beginner.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there was so many feels and I really, because I wanted to be considered an artist, like I was just so desperate to find my identity. And it
Mm.
was so challenging to do that, like within the time that I had for myself. So, you know, the farmer work ethic, right? I'm working
Mm-hmm.
full time in tech, trying to have a side business in photography, attempting to do
Yeah.
weddings, which is just insane.
Except for mine. Mine was so simple and straightforward and easy. That's not, none of that was true.
Uh, um, yeah, and it was just, I've always tried to do too more than I can handle. And I was successful for a while, but
Hmm.
that caught up to me pretty recently.
What's so interesting is, yeah, we're gonna go to there. And what's so interesting to me is I didn't realize until you told that story how it was your passion and you were feeling that passion, but it was somebody else's version of what success looks like in that passion.
Yes, yes.
I didn't put that all together.
Yeah, at the time, so there's the transition. There was a big shakeup in, photography. Um, all of a sudden everybody had digital cameras and everybody was a photographer. And the photographers, the, classically trained photographers, I guess we could say, um, were really threatened and they had to really change how they did business. And a lot of people just didn't make it through that transition.
Mm.
Some people transitioned to digital, some didn't. And, you know, the business behind it is really interesting. Um, but yeah, there were, I tried to find like what is the definition of a photographer? Can I call myself a photographer? Right? Because engineering, it's like, all right, I get a degree, I can say I'm a bioengineer, and
Yeah.
you respect me because I have my degree, right?
Yes.
And academia is steeped in that, right? The PhD, you're the boss if you have the
Yes.
PhD, right? If you have anything else, you're like the peon. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, going from academia into like this other industry, I was like, what do I have to do to prove to people, that I'm serious, that my
Mm.
work is good? Do I have to take classes? Do I need to get another degree? And I kept reading on forums that like if you don't make this many sales or you're not full time, then you're not a photographer. Like everybody has all of these definitions and
Wow.
labels, and I struggled with that. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I put way too much energy into that. Like the amount of time it took me to make that piece that sits behind you and to start find
Mm-hmm.
my voice. I'm like, oh, I could have gotten there so much quicker if I wouldn't have put so much energy into these other things. But
Mm-hmm.
hindsight is
But
2020, right?
and we're always on these circles, right? One of the things that I hear often is I'm just stuck in this circle, I'm stuck in this circle,
Hmm.
right? And I feel that way sometimes. Oh my gosh, with my parenting, sometimes I'm like, how are we in this circle again? But then when I look back, I realize that yeah, it felt that way. And in reality, I was learning incrementally,
Hmm.
because then I can like a spring, like leap forward. And knowing your journey with art and knowing how much stronger and confident, and I don't know the right word for this, Erica, so I hope you'll help me here, but like imperfect you are with your art. So let me
Yeah.
describe that because maybe that's not the right word. So Erica and I did a week-long retreat and we worked on each other's businesses and did nothing and sat by a fire. It was pretty fantastic. Oh, and
So
you
amazing.
chased a lost sheep. I was too scared to chase the sheep. It was stuck. And then we found out it always gets stuck. It's a little pain in the butt. But, anyways, back to the thing. Your work now is um, based on alcohol paint.
Alcohol
Oh my
ink.
gosh. Ink. Thank you. And you drop it, right? So I'm doing this with Erica and I'm like, I mean, how hard can this be? Right? You just drop it and it spreads a little bit and it's lovely. It's so hard. And it never goes the way you think it's going to go. And it's beautiful. And it's this imperfection and this uncontrolled, natural beauty that you bring into your art with such confidence. So yeah, there
Oh,
was some
thank you.
spinning for a while, but it was spinning that created a spring for the leap forward, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, what I like about what I do um, is the complexity of it and the total lack of control over it.
Yeah, that description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, should we tell the story about how you came home with a pamphlet about perfectionism and handed it to me?
No, I don't think we should tell that story.
will that will that stay in the podcast?
You can tell lots of my secrets. Totally. How I lived off of cheese and deer for like a semester, sure.
Oh, you know you have a beautiful friendship when somebody can come to you and tell you, "Fix your shit." I love you. Fix your shit.
And both ways, like both ways.
Yes.
When I was getting so obsessed with a specific type of success, and you didn't give me a pamphlet because we were on the phone. And this is when I stepped back in my career. I didn't get formally demoted, but I basically got demoted. Do you remember this?
Mm,
And I was losing it.
yes.
And you were like, "You have been miserable. You don't like that work. Now you get to do work you say you like. What is going on?" Like that
Mm.
power of friendship. And then my career took off. I mean, it just exploded like 2 years later. Isn't that funny? In my memory, it's like, and then
Mhm.
it exploded. And in reality, there was a 2 year. Like, anywho. Oh my gosh. So describe how you make your art. Describe, like, yeah.
Sure. So there's a type of photography called multiple exposure photography, like a method. Um, if you think about the old film cameras, you would just expose the film twice before you went to the next um, slide. And I'm able to do that within my digital camera. So
Mhm.
I take two, sometimes three photographs at the same time in my camera. And I know that Photoshop exists. My husband reminds me all the time and is like, why don't you just I make the process. I like doing it in camera. I don't want to sit at a I sit at a computer all the time. I don't want to be glued to it all the time. I like the challenge of bringing two or three images together into a beautiful image without
Mm.
knowing exactly how it's going to come together. It's like a surprise. It's like
Yeah.
um, you know, it's so hard to explain. I like not having control of every little single pixel. Like, why do I need that control? Why do I need to? I don't know. It could be that my art would be better if I would do it in Photoshop and merge layers and all that stuff, but that's not. I'm a tactile person. I like to make things with my hands, and that my process is all about making things with my hands.
Yeah, yeah. And there's this, because I didn't know the conversation around Photoshop and what it would look like. And what your art does is brings the natural imperfections
Hmm.
of the flowers and the scenes that you capture, which I think that's what makes people get drawn to the metal pieces and the wood pieces and the cards. I mean, everyone that I know that has one of your cards, I have a card right down here. That's why I'm looking at that. They all still have their cards. I think it's because there isn't that pixel by pixel by pixel, but there's rather this felt but undescribed naturalness.
Hmm.
And then the incredible chaos of the ink,
I
the
love
alcohol
that.
ink.
I love this. It's like you can just see science happening right in front of you.
Mm,
The particles moving around and mixing with each other, coming up with, like, you might pick three colors that you want your painting to be, and then you get a couple extra in there that I guess maybe if I knew color theory better, I wouldn't know what to expect. But even how they sometimes, like, the colors, I don't know, colors separate a little bit, and then all of a sudden there's texture. When you start with the alcohol ink itself, it just looks blue, right, when you drop it. But then, like, you start
Yeah.
to mix the different mediums and move them around, and I don't know, they start to separate and converge, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I just love it so
And
much.
create unequal weights. And
Hmm.
when you did that with my kids, you could see how both of them were experiencing this transformation of this white piece of paper into
Hmm.
this layers and layers of colors. And yeah, I mean, my little one couldn't keep her finger out of the paint. She was just fascinated
Right.
by the weight, right? That was really neat. Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you think were some of like the lessons, like the bravest moments, or the lessons that you carry forward, and why you wanted
Mm.
to share this journey from, I'm not getting my PhD, I'm not completing someone else's dream, into art, and then claiming it as your own and defining it, like you chose to call yourself an artist. You didn't wait for anybody
Hmm.
else. You got
Yes,
to
I
that
had
point.
to. Nobody can. I learned that you can wait for people to give you permission, but it's not until you give yourself permission that
Oh,
things can happen, right? I so desperately wanted the world to be like, yes, you can be an artist. Go do it. Nobody would do that for me. Nobody could do that for me. I had to decide it for myself. When
yeah,
they're like, people
yeah.
ask you, what could you tell your younger self? I'd be like, that. I think that's what I would tell my younger self.
Mm.
So you have to decide that's who you want to be. And I think that, I mean, that translates to women going into product, women going into STEAM, anybody who wants to do anything. You're the person that decides that's what you want to be. Yeah.
And and you can be more than what like, I think that one of the things I love about, this description, because you are creative in tech, and you are creative in art, and you are creative in opportunities for women and girls in STEAM areas. And I love the and. because you didn't have to choose.
Yeah. Well, I'm still working on that. But so, I mean, I can't choose just one. I find so much fulfillment in all of them. I need to be technical. I need to be creative and non-technical. I need to be in service to others. I have to be all these things. And the world keeps telling me, no, you can't be all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I meet people, and if you don't have a quick label, then they kind of brush you off, right? So,
Yeah.
really quickly, it's like, well, part of it is learning to pitch yourself to others too. Right now, I'm now I've got my head wrapped around it a little bit better, but there are still people that when they're getting to know me, they're like, "You call yourself a what?" And they don't necessarily understand it, or
Yeah.
you haven't earned.
Those
Yeah,
aren't your
yeah, those
people.
aren't my people. That's fine.
They don't get to come to the Iowa sheep chasing adventure.
um, but really, the two, my technical and non-technical brains really inform each other. And it wasn't until I put the energy into my art and finding my artistic voice that I found my technical voice. It like I don't have a specific date, but I know like at some point I found my artistic voice and I'm like all of a sudden found this confidence. Like,
Mm.
hell yeah,
Mm.
I am great at this. Well, great,
Mm-hmm.
but I make some great great artwork.
Y'all, she's great. We're cutting that out.
I love it. If I can love it. um, work that I'm proud of. And then all of a sudden in my technical work, like I found this confidence to start speaking up and to be more
Yeah.
blunt and to
Yeah.
be I don't to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed both of them. I need both of them.
Yeah. And there's something in there about liking oneself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I have
Which is
oh, sorry.
just an ongoing spiral
Yeah.
with leaps and then spirals for me. For me.
So art has found things in me that I wasn't able to find. Like technical degrees, there's don't teach you 50% about what it is that you need to learn when you go out into the world. I tell people the one thing that engineering school taught me was that I don't actually have to know how to do anything. I can figure it out. I can go do the
Yeah.
research and figure it out. And there's so much that they don't teach you how to lead. They don't really teach you how to
Mm,
manage
mm.
projects, which when you get out in the real world, you really need to know how to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the best, you know, cosmic accidents slash. So the first time I ever went onto like a consulting kind of thing, it was because a colleague wasn't feeling well, and I was the only one in our small little department who didn't have children and didn't have holiday or whatever. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go to Norway. Falling into consulting, which is relationship management, project management, conflict, all the things, was just this cosmic gift because I didn't learn any of that with my degree. And I learned
Mm,
some of it being in poverty, you learn to be really creative and figure out how to get things done and being the oldest sister and things like that, but not at that level. And I may have studied all of the world's religion and read all their texts, but how to get shit done on a
mhm.
deadline without pissing everybody else off was not part of my university. Thank you, $110,000. Oh man. Oh man. So we've talked a lot about our role models and who we look up to, and um as we've gone for 22 years of friendship and just had all these different life
Mm.
phases, who is a brave role model that you'd like to share with the listeners today?
Mm. Oh, dear listeners. So this is one I struggle with. And
Mm,
the reason I just figured out, I just learned the reason that I struggle with this. So I've been learning a lot about identity, specifically in how young children form STEM identity, right? Because some of my work is now geared towards, um, inspiring the next generation of young engineers and scientists
mhm.
to want to go into those career paths. And, a lot of that is just children need to build a STEM identity. They need to connect with and see themselves in the profession, which I think is totally
Yes.
fascinating, right? And the reason I bring that up is because I've had a hard time. I never felt like there was somebody that like really inspired me.
Mm,
And I've just figured that out recently why that is because I've had such a hard time like figuring out what my identity is. I couldn't really connect with other people. Like, I know sometimes I bring up Oprah, and Oprah is fabulous. And I am grateful that Oprah exists and that people find her inspiring, but I'm not going to be Oprah, right? So
yeah.
I don't aspire to be an Oprah. I aspire to be the best I can be as myself. So that means I need to find people that I can identify with and relate to and be inspired by them. And what I realized is that my beautiful group of friends, I've surrounded myself with people that are just I just love them so much. They're making
Yeah.
such an impact on the world.
Mhm.
They're bringing joy to other people, through showing them their beauty, their relationships to others. Um,
Mm.
and God, I can't just pick one. So everybody,
And you don't have to.
there's so many. Um, I mean, so there's you, of course.
Thank you.
um, who I still feel like a terrible friend when you're like, my word is brave, and I'm like, yeah, I don't relate. Now I do.
Which is so funny because, the first time I talked about Brave, and I share this on an episode with Cora Hundred, who spoke with me at Anita B, you know, I really mean it. You're one of the bravest people I know, because I love being in the center of attention. I will hop onto any stage you give me access to. I'll walk into any room. Well, not any room now, because I realize people are dirty and we have a lot of germs. But anyways, um, and I'll make small talk with anybody, connect with anybody, and you will do the same actions, but it's not your comfortable place, and you'll still get on the stage, and that just
That's big.
continues to amaze me.
Thank you. My motive, like, yes, it terrifies me, and my motivation is always like others, being in service to others. Somebody
Mm.
Somebody said that to me a number of years ago for like some house party. It was my boss's wife, and she asked what I was up to, and I, list some of the things that I was excited about tackling at work. And she looked at me inside, and she's like, "I always in service to others."
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you know me, I don't remember very many conversations, and that I think about her saying that to me a lot, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's my motivation is make the world a better place, make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's
And you've surrounded yourself with people who do that.
yes.
Jude with her
Oh
services.
my gosh, Jude has just
I
transformed
mean,
me. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
It's just, yeah. Mm.
Heather, who's releasing a book
Oh,
soon. And
that's super
I
fun.
know. And she'll have a TED Talk. Heather will have a TED Talk. She's going to listen to this and she's going
And I'm gonna amplify it
to.
everywhere
Oh my
because
gosh.
Heather is a straight talker and she doesn't have time for people who don't consider accessibility. And I may have been one of them peoples.
Mm, we all
Mm,
we can all learn and change our ways, and Heather is,
yes.
she's making an impact in the world, and her book's coming out soon, and it's going to
Yeah.
really share an incredible story, an incredible experience, an incredible person with the world. So get Heather's book.
Yeah. This is the Good Old Gals Network right
Is this
here. We are always amplifying each other. We are
Heather?
the water that is raising all boats.
There's so many people.
Oh,
I do. Can I list one more?
you can list three more.
I want to list one more. I want to list Anita Buzzy Prentice and her beautiful book during quarantine. She called Portraits. Porch, as in you're out on your front porch.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yes, yes. What in the midst of the saddest time that we all have collectively experienced, Anita is out
Mhm.
there socially distanced and safely taking pictures of family portraits of people during quarantine and sharing their stories. And I got the book and read it to my grandmother. We sat on the porch and we were reading through the stories. And it's amazing how much that connects people. Like one of the stories
Mhm.
was about a woman who learned to cut her husband's hair right during quarantine. And my
Oh.
grandma could not stop talking about that. She's like, I used to cut your grandfather's hair,
Mhm.
and I would keep reading more stories, and she'd keep coming back to that woman cutting her hair.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to me,
Mhm.
like, so we forget like how similar we are, right? We're always
Yeah.
like asking like, what do you do, right? Like, what's your label?
Yeah.
And then we forget about all the more important stuff, really. It's human
Right.
experience. So
Yeah. That's that label conversation.
mhm.
What do you do? Who are you? Right? Rather than what do you love? Or, I always see on these parent forums a tweet on Twitter that went viral like 10 years ago. And it was like, nobody ever asks me what my favorite dinosaur is anymore. Right? Or,
Mm,
what's your favorite thought right now? That's such a
that's interesting.
powerful idea, right? And
Mhm.
that's why I started this podcast because I know that when I saw another woman share her story, so I had just moved to Germany and I think I was still freelancing. And she's shared her story about moving to Germany and how painful it was because she's an extrovert. That's me. She's a people person. That's me. And it's not the easiest place culturally, right?
Mm-mm.
And how she, you know, came from poverty and a violent home and things where we had nothing else in common, but we had that in common. And here she was, this woman traveling around the world in STEM. She was actually in aeronautics. I can't tell you that woman's name, I can just say that her story showed me I could do something too. And that's
Mhm.
why this story or this podcast with these stories is such a heart work for me. I mean, listeners don't know, but I go to bed at an insanely early hour. I also wake up at an insanely early hour. But this is so important to me that, guys, it's almost 8 p.m. I still have on real clothes because sharing these stories is so important to keeping women in and around tech. Tech is the infrastructure of our future lives. And we need
Mhm.
women in the driver's seats in their wholeness as creatives
Yes.
in tech, in art, in opportunities, in their wholeness, and not pretending for however many hours a day to be somebody else's identity.
Mhm.
Because we deserve it already. Mm.
We do.
All right. So, how can people follow you? How can they learn more? And most importantly, how can they buy your works of art? But not the ones that I have my eye on, the other ones.
Let's see. So I have a brand new gallery online called ericatamburogallery.com. And
What? Y'all, I am just learning this right
yes,
now. It's live. Erica at TamburoGallery.com.
yes, it's live, but I have so much stuff to put up there. It's going to take a while for everything to get up.
I'm so excited. Okay.
So, and there will be a new blog as well, so you can learn about my process and, join me on my journey. We can journey
Yes.
together. And I do have an Instagram, Erica Tamburo. You can follow me on there. Yeah,
Mm,
those are probably the two best places. I'm on LinkedIn too if you want to connect there. Happy to connect.
fantastic. Oh, man. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I feel so lucky and so special to share my life with you.
Oh, me
I
too.
really appreciate it. I didn't promise not to cry, so thank you. Long distance hug from long distance buddies. All right. Thank you for this story. And everybody reach out to Erica and check out her. Bye.